The receipt was still warm when I found it. It was wedged between two napkins in the glove box of our car. I hadn't meant to find it. I wasn't snooping. I was just looking for the registration before a routine inspection. But there it was, time-stamped, crisp, and unmistakable. Room 307. One night. King Suite. 2 guests. I stared at it for what felt like hours. The check-in time was 3:17 p.m. She told me she was at her dentist's at 3 o'clock. She even texted a selfie in the chair. It had a toothbrush emoji. My hands didn't shake. My eyes didn't well up. Instead, I smiled. Not out of amusement, but the kind of smile you get when the math finally adds up and the answer is worse than you feared. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I took the receipt, folded it once, and slid it into my wallet right next to the photo of us at Cider Hill where she swore she wanted to grow old beside me. I said nothing for 3 days. Not when she laughed at a show we watched together. Not when she asked if the soup tasted too garlicky. Not even when she reached across the couch and laid her head on my chest like everything was fine. 3 days of silence, planning, and patience. On the 4th day, I called in sick to work, went downtown, and walked into Eaton Suites Hotel, the same name on the receipt. I didn't speak to the concierge. I didn't need to. I just sat in the lobby with a copy of the guest log, compliments of someone who owed me a favor from my old security days. There were 4 bookings under her name in the past 2 months. Each one under the same pattern, Friday afternoons. Always room 307. Always for 2. Still, I didn't cry. I took a photo of the log. I got back in my car. I drove past her office but didn't stop. I went home. And that's when things got strange. I noticed the closet. Not her side, mine. A gray hoodie was missing. My oldest one, the one with frayed cuffs I used to wear on early hikes with her. It wasn't valuable. It wasn't stylish. But it was missing, and something about that absence made the walls hum in my ears. I checked the laundry. Nothing. The hamper. Empty. Then the bathroom, the mirror fogged over from her shower. And on it, faintly traced by a fingertip, were 3 letters. L plus J. I am L. We don't know any J. And that was the moment I realized this wasn't new. This wasn't a lapse in judgment. This was a whole secret life. She was living with me and simultaneously orbiting someone else's world where I didn't exist. A place where she borrowed my hoodie, wore it to another man's bed, and still came home asking if we were out of oat milk. So I did something I hadn't done in months. I called her mom. We'd barely spoken in years, her daughter had made sure of that. But her mom picked up immediately, voice shaky like she'd been expecting the call. Did she tell you? Her mom asked before I even said hello. Tell me what? There was a pause. Then a long sigh. I told her she was playing with fire. I told her he's dangerous. But she said she couldn't stop. My blood turned to ash. She who? I asked even though I knew. And her mom whispered a name I hadn't heard in over a decade. Jacob. I hadn't heard that name in over 10 years. Jacob. Even just hearing it again felt like stepping into a room I had locked up long ago. He was her high school boyfriend, a name I vaguely remembered from stories she'd told back when we were still in that sickly sweet honeymoon phase of our marriage. She described him as chaotic, a mistake, and even once as the kind of guy who doesn't leave until something's broken. She never said he was dangerous. But now, listening to her mother breathe heavily on the phone, I realized something she had buried in silence. Jacob wasn't a story from her past. He was part of her present. A present she was keeping carefully tucked behind lies and dentist appointments. I stayed on the line for a few minutes longer. Her mother didn't offer many answers, just hesitation, regret, and more sighs than words. But one thing stuck with me. He wasn't supposed to find her again. She blocked everything after that restraining order. I thought it was over. Restraining order? That part she had definitely left out. I ended the call, numb, and sat down at the dining room table. The same table where we hosted friends, clinked wine glasses, played cards on Sundays. And now all I could picture was her, my wife, wrapped in my hoodie in room 307 with a man she once feared enough to get legal protection from. What the hell was she doing? Later that evening, she came home humming. Humming. Like the world was just fine. She dropped her keys into the bowl by the door, kissed me on the forehead, the kind of automatic gesture that requires no actual emotion, and disappeared into the bathroom. I stared at the door after she shut it, heart-thudding, wondering if she'd drawn another set of initials in the steam. I had 2 options. Say something now and possibly watch her deny it, gaslight me, cry, spin the truth like she always did when cornered. Or wait. Wait and get everything. I chose the latter. That night, I emailed a former coworker of mine, Lena, who now freelanced as a digital analyst and tracker. She once helped a client catch their ex siphoning crypto from a shared wallet. If anyone could help me uncover hidden messages, secret accounts, or burner phones, it was her. By the next day, she was in. And by the next evening, she had access to an old cloud backup of my wife's texts. Apparently, she had set her messages to autosync years ago to an old Gmail she forgot existed. And there he was. Jacob. Their messages weren't just recent. They stretched back over 6 months. What shocked me the most wasn't the content, though it was bad. They weren't just meeting in hotels. They were making plans. Talking about moving. Even joked about me. She said I was a loyal retriever with no idea he's guarding a wolf. One text hit me like a punch to the chest. It's like he's watching my life through frosted glass. I don't even have to lie hard anymore. I stared at that message until the screen blurred. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't temptation. It was sport. She was letting Jacob back in, a man with a violent, obsessive past, because she craved something destructive. Something twisted. And I had no idea what she was truly capable of. The scariest part? Neither did she. Because the more I read, the more I realized something truly sickening. She wasn't in love with him. She wasn't even obsessed with him. She was addicted to the idea of destroying her own life. And I was the dull, loyal husband who unknowingly made it all easier to hide. But I was done playing that role. Because the next message sent just 2 days ago made my blood go cold. He still doesn't know. I want to see his face when I finally say it. Say what? I didn't know yet. But I was about to find out. Because tomorrow I would be following her, and for the first time in months she would be the one being watched. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was heartbroken. No, heartbreak had come and gone. What kept me awake was calculation. Cold, deliberate planning. The kind of thinking you do when your skin starts feeling foreign on your body. Every hour I replayed her text over and over. He still doesn't know. I want to see his face when I finally say it. And in those hours I became someone I hadn't been in years, the version of myself that used to design threat response protocols before I quit that world to have a peaceful life with her. In the early hours of the morning, I drove out to a 24-hour supply store. Bought a voice-activated recorder, a tiny dash cam with cloud sync, and a discreet GPS tag. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet, but she was going to tell me the truth one way or another. And she was going to do it while thinking no one was listening. At 6:30 a.m. she left for her volunteer day at the clinic. She always wore the same burgundy windbreaker and white sneakers when she volunteered. I waited until she turned the corner, then stepped into the garage and installed everything I needed in the car. It wasn't a confrontation, it was documentation. Because if she was setting me up for something, I needed more than suspicion. I needed an airtight record. The GPS pinged her location as heading north away from the clinic. 10 minutes passed. 15. At the 20-minute mark, the car stopped at a small grocery lot next to a gas station. She sat there for a while. Then another car pulled up. Black Nissan. Tinted windows. The GPS clocked her moving again, but now in the opposite direction. She'd switched cars. She'd done this before. She was good. But not better than me. The dash cam still synced automatically. And what I saw confirmed everything. Jacob, in the driver's seat. Tattoo on his neck now aged and weathered. Still leaned forward when he spoke like he was permanently 2 seconds from either kissing someone or punching them. Her face was turned toward him. She looked 17 again. Eyes lit up with mischief, hair pulled back in a lazy knot, no wedding ring in sight. They were laughing about something. The mic caught a few fragments. I leaned in as the audio kicked in, faint but chilling. Jacob, you ready to do it? Her, I told you he's not going to see it coming. He'll probably make me breakfast that morning. That morning? What morning? I paused the feed and walked around my kitchen for 10 full minutes, trying to swallow the possibility that she wasn't just cheating, she was plotting something. It felt theatrical. Absurd. Like I was in some low-budget thriller and the twist had come too soon. But it was real. The camera feed continued later, inside what looked like a motel room, not room 307 this time, but a different one, somewhere off the highway based on the hum of traffic. She lay on the bed while he paced around shirtless, talking fast. Jacob, if you want out, this is how we do it. He's too soft. He won't fight it. He'll fold. Her, he won't fight anything. That's the problem. It wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. She was planning my disappearance from her life like I was a minor inconvenience. And Jacob, he was enabling it with the kind of swagger you only get from knowing someone's about to hand you their house, their life, their identity, wrapped up with a bow. By noon, I had a full folder of video, audio, and location data. I didn't know exactly what they were planning. Maybe it was just divorce, maybe something worse, but I knew one thing with certainty. She was going to be blindsided before I ever was. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of saying it to my face. Not anymore. That night I cooked dinner. She came home late, offered some vague excuse about traffic and delays at the clinic, and sat across from me chewing silently, never once meeting my eyes. I smiled at her. I asked about her day. I offered her more wine. I cleaned the plates while she scrolled her phone and faked exhaustion. She thought I was clueless. She thought she was winning. But tomorrow morning, before she left the house, she would find something unexpected on the passenger seat. A single envelope. Inside it, one printed photo from the motel. Not explicit. Just her and Jacob. Laughing. Clear as day. No message. No threats. No explanation. Just truth dropped like a coin into the quiet between us. And I was going to watch from the window to see exactly what she did next. She found the envelope at 7:46 a.m. I watched from the upstairs window, barely breathing, as she opened the passenger door of her car, tossed her bag into the seat, then froze. Her fingers hovered over the cream-colored envelope, plain, unmarked, slightly curled at the corners. I'd placed it so precisely she couldn't miss it. And when she finally lifted it, turned it over, and slipped out the photo, I swear I could hear the oxygen leave her lungs from 20 feet away. She didn't scream. She didn't throw it. She didn't even glance around to see if someone was watching. She just stared. 11 minutes. I timed it. 11 minutes of silence, eyes locked on the image of her and Jacob laughing in that motel room, frozen like she was trying to erase the moment with sheer concentration. Then she did something I didn't expect. She smiled. Not wide. Not victorious. Just a faint, tight, private smile, the kind you make when you realize the game has changed and you're not sure whether you've won or lost yet. She slid the photo back into the envelope, folded it once, tucked it into her coat pocket, and drove away like nothing had happened. I didn't know what to make of that, but I knew what I had to do next. It was time to find out who Jacob really was now. Because the man I remembered from her brief stories years ago was just a blurry figure, a troubled guy with a motorcycle and a short fuse. But the man in the motel footage, pacing around half-dressed, whispering strategy? That wasn't some fling. That was someone with plans. So I dug. I spent the entire day cross-referencing names, tracking social media accounts, and calling in 2 old favors from friends in law enforcement. Within 6 hours, I had a file. Jacob Langley. Arrested twice. Once for assault in 2014. Once for trespassing and vandalism in 2017. Nothing recent, but the gaps in activity were suspicious. More troubling, he was now listed as the sole owner of a defunct construction company that had filed for bankruptcy 2 months ago. No new income. No listed address. Just a string of canceled permits and 2 vehicles under his name, both registered in other counties. He was living under the radar. Which meant Karis was funding whatever they were doing together, or at least giving him access to my assets. I checked our joint account. And that's when the floor beneath me cracked wide open. 2 days ago, while I was at work, she transferred $42,000 from our shared savings into a business loan account listed under her name. The note said, investment refund returned to self. But we never made an investment. There was no business. And that account? I never even knew it existed. It had only one connected card, and it had been used 4 hours ago to book 2 first-class one-way flights. Departing this Saturday. Destination, Portland, Oregon. A city neither of us had ever visited. I stared at the receipt on the screen for a long time, letting the implications spread through me like ink on paper. She was planning to leave. Disappear. Not just with another man, but with our money. Our future. She wasn't going to tell me. She wasn't going to file for anything. She was going to erase me from the narrative and vanish. But she had underestimated something critical. She thought I was weak. She thought I was a harmless man who would just accept it, who wouldn't question a toothbrush selfie or a clinic delay. She thought she could bury the truth under a smile and fly away before I noticed the grave. She was wrong. That night, I didn't sleep again. But this time, it wasn't from fear. It was clarity. Cold, focused clarity. I wasn't going to stop her from going. I was going to let her walk straight into the ending she had written and flip the page when she thought the story was done. The next morning, I took action. I went to the bank and froze the account. I had full authorization. Then I contacted the airline and, using the transaction ID and the fact that the booking was in my name too, she was sloppy, I canceled both tickets. Then I left the house exactly as she left it, keys in the bowl, coffee brewing, phone on the counter. But before I left, I opened her laptop. And what I found there was the final crack in the mask she wore. She'd written a letter. Not to me. To him. Titled The Goodbye Plan. It outlined everything. How she would convince me to sign over the house during a temporary refinance. How she would ask for space to think, and while I stayed at my brother's place, she and Jacob would quietly move out. Sell everything. Split the profits. Disappear. I read it 3 times. Then I emailed a copy to myself. And then I changed the password and logged her out of every device she owned. Let her wonder. Let her sweat. Because in 72 hours I would be gone and she would realize that the person she thought she was manipulating had been watching from the beginning. She played this like a game. But I was about to end it like a checkmate. The house was cold when she walked in. That part one made sure of. I had left the thermostat turned off, the windows slightly cracked, and the lights dimmed just enough to make it feel hollow. Familiar, but distant. The way she once made me feel in our own bedroom. She came in through the side door, the one near the laundry room. Same routine as always. Purse on the table. Shoes off by the wall. Her keys hit the bowl, and I imagined her rehearsing whatever performance she had planned. A cheerful lie, a sigh about traffic, maybe even a fabricated story about a surprise errand to throw me off. But I wasn't there to hear it. And I left nothing behind to make it easier on her. No note. No calls. No trace. Only one thing stood out, the open closet door in the hallway. She wouldn't notice it immediately. But when she did, she'd see the box on the floor, my box. The one I kept hidden behind the winter coats. Inside it were some of the most telling fragments of our life, printed screenshots of her texts with Jacob, hotel booking confirmations, the bank transfer receipt, and a single airline cancellation notice marked in bold red letters. I hadn't signed my name anywhere, but I didn't need to. She'd know. And just for fun, I added one last item, her own letter, the one she wrote to Jacob, outlining their goodbye plan, except now it had a bright yellow sticky note attached that simply said, "Nice blueprint." Then I turned off my phone and disappeared. Not permanently. Not forever. But long enough to break her rhythm. I stayed in a rented cabin just outside Marlow, the kind of secluded getaway you only hear about in survival podcasts and mystery thrillers. No Wi-Fi. No neighbors. No calendar on the wall. I brought books, a camera, and just one photograph, the image of her face, 11 minutes frozen, staring at the motel snapshot from the passenger seat. I'd burned it into my mind. I didn't need the photo anymore. But I kept it anyway. Because obsession, like grief, never dies clean. She called. Of course she did. Over 20 missed calls in the first day alone. Then the texts came. First confused. Then defensive. Then angry. Where are you? Why are you acting crazy? I don't know what you think you saw, but it's not like that. We need to talk. You're blowing this way out of proportion. You're not well, Elwood. This isn't you. What did you do with the money? And then the one I'd been waiting for. Jacob's gone. He took everything. Please, just come home. That was the moment I let myself laugh, not a manic laugh, not cruel, just a quiet one, like the exhale you let out when a storm finally passes. She'd been played too. The man she risked everything for vanished the moment her savings dried up. Of course he did. She was just one of many reruns in his low-budget drama series. And now the credits were rolling and she had no one left in the cast. She sent one more message. Just one. I'm sorry. 2 words. Late. Empty. Delivered through a screen she used to shield secrets. The irony was almost poetic. But it wasn't over. That night I drove back into town, not to return to her, but to meet with someone else. Someone who'd been waiting for me to stop pretending, my lawyer. We'd been drafting something for weeks, ever since I discovered the extent of her financial betrayal. Not just infidelity, but theft, fraud, and willful manipulation. I had enough documentation to pursue a full separation with protective measures, and I was planning to do just that. But I wanted more than just legal closure. I wanted her to feel the silence I'd lived in for months. The helplessness. The slow unraveling. So I sent her one thing, a small, pale envelope left inside her now empty jewelry drawer. Inside, a photo of us taken 3 years ago in front of a lighthouse in Maine. We looked happy in that picture. She had her arm around me. I was smiling in that soft, oblivious way I used to. But on the back of the photo, I wrote just 6 words. You won't see me coming. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reminding her that even when she thought she was in control, she never really knew who she was dealing with. And the next part of my plan? That would unfold in a courtroom. And in the court of everyone she lied to. The hearing wasn't scheduled until noon, but I arrived at 10:45. I wanted to sit with the silence first. Feel it. Let it soak through the floor and into my shoes like the calm before a verdict neither side could control. The conference room wasn't a courtroom, not yet, but it might as well have been. It had the same chill in the air. The same polished table no one wanted to touch. The same fake paintings on the wall meant to distract people from the fact that their lives were about to be dissected under legal lighting. When she arrived, I watched the door like it was theater. I expected nervousness. Maybe a flicker of fear. But no, she walked in with a folder, sunglasses tucked into her hair, and a smirk that said, "This is going to be easy." She clearly thought we were here for a simple mediation. Probably assumed I'd cave. Thought I'd want to talk things through. She had no idea what was waiting inside the manila folders in front of my attorney. Karis didn't acknowledge me directly. She sat across the table like a stranger who used to borrow my sweaters. Her attorney, some young guy who looked like he practiced Instagram law, began with what he probably thought was a confident voice. Talked about amicable division, peaceful proceedings, shared responsibility. My lawyer, Naomi, said nothing. She just smiled. That kind of smile you wear right before flipping the board over. When it was our turn, Naomi opened a folder and pulled out a timeline. Not an accusation. Not speculation. A timeline. Dates. Financial records. Transfers. Surveillance stills. Printouts of messages. Hotel bookings. GPS routes. And yes, the letter, her goodbye plan, highlighted and annotated like it was being submitted for a college thesis on betrayal. Karis's smile evaporated. Her attorney tried to interrupt, but Naomi kept going. Calm. Relentless. Efficient. Like a surgeon opening a wound in a sterile room, exposing every artery of deceit and manipulation. It wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was strategic deception with financial implications. Attempted fraud. Premeditated asset withdrawal. Evidence of coercion. The moment her attorney saw the bank transfers, money pulled from our shared account funneled into a hidden investment refund shell account, his posture changed. He stopped smiling. He stopped interrupting. He asked for a recess. But Naomi wasn't done. She slid over one final sheet, the airline receipt. 2 one-way tickets. Departure time. Confirmation of cancellation under my legal authority. And then, my favorite touch, a copy of the email receipt from the airline marked travel canceled, fraud protection notice sent. For the first time in a very long time, Karis looked like she didn't know where she was. And then came the final blow. Naomi leaned in slightly, folded her hands, and calmly said, "We're not here to negotiate, Ms. Langley. We're here to inform you that Elwood is filing for full dissolution of the marriage on grounds of misconduct, and we are seeking full retention of assets under Protective Clause 13.1. Karis's lips moved, but no sound came out. Her attorney whispered something. She shook her head once, hard. Then she finally looked at me, really looked at me, and I didn't look away. I held her gaze. Not with anger. Not with sadness. But with something far colder, resolve. Because this wasn't just about punishing her. It was about rewriting the narrative she thought she controlled. After the meeting, I didn't go home. There was no home anymore. I walked into the small cafe across the street and ordered coffee, the same cafe where, weeks earlier, she sat laughing with her friends until she saw me and everything in her face crumbled in an instant. And that's when I realized. That moment, that split second when she froze in the coffee shop, it hadn't been guilt. It had been recognition. She knew. Even back then, something in her had already guessed that the man sitting quietly with his drink wasn't going to let this end on her terms. She saw it in my eyes. I wasn't the man who let himself be erased. She tried to delete me, and now she was the one disappearing, behind lawyers, behind consequences, behind a reputation that was already beginning to fray. Because word spreads, and betrayal, once exposed, doesn't stay confined to private rooms. It bleeds into everything. Families, friends, group chats, reputations. And I wasn't the one talking. People were asking questions on their own. And she didn't have answers. She only had silence. The same kind she fed me for months. Now closing around her like a cage she designed herself. And I was just getting started. If Karis had one fatal flaw, it was underestimating people. Not just me, everyone. She believed, truly believed, that if she curated her image hard enough, no one would question the cracks behind the glass. She had spent years presenting herself as poised, charitable, polished. She baked cupcakes for the office on birthdays. She sponsored an animal rescue fundraiser. She remembered people's kids' names. But no mask survives a fire, and I had just lit the first match in the middle of her carefully arranged world. I didn't leak anything. I didn't have to. The moment our legal motion was filed, the whispers began. The women in her book club noticed she stopped attending. A colleague from her firm reached out to me privately, asking why she was removed from the shared account. Her sister, who had always been suspicious of how quickly Karis changed after the wedding, sent me a message. Is it true? But the real shift happened in the group chat. The one we had been part of together for years. Friends, neighbors, old college acquaintances. It had gone mostly quiet after the separation began. People unsure how to talk around the cracks. But now, it was buzzing. The moment her ex-friend Lauren, who once called Jacob a walking red flag, saw the filing paperwork mentioned in a mutual's legal circles, she broke the silence. Lauren. So, Karis was cheating and stealing money? The thread exploded. People were polite at first, cautious. But within hours, it turned into a flood of questions, confessions, screenshots. Someone else said she had seen Karis and Jacob together 6 weeks ago outside a storage facility. She assumed it was a relative. Another claimed they noticed strange behavior during a birthday dinner. Karis kept checking her phone and whispering with a man in the parking lot, while telling me she had a migraine. It was all pouring out now. What struck me wasn't just how many people had noticed things. It was how many had said nothing until now. Fear, politeness, apathy, who knows? But now that the wall had cracked, everyone was kicking bricks loose. And she knew it. She called me 2 days later. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. Her voice was flat, exhausted, not angry, bewildered. I just want to understand why you're doing this. You said nothing for months. You didn't even fight me. And now you're dragging me through court like I'm some criminal. Why are you letting them tear me apart? That last line made me pause. Letting them? No, I wasn't tearing her apart. The truth was, and it was only just beginning to surface. Because Naomi, my attorney, wasn't just pursuing asset protection anymore. She had discovered something buried in the bank documents. Pattern. Small withdrawals. Transfer after transfer labeled with codes that didn't match any known accounts. She suspected shell laundering, that Karis might have been funneling money not just to Jacob, but to an offshore account under someone else's name. We filed for a financial audit. The court granted it. She received the notice on a Thursday morning. By Friday, her attorney dropped her. Conflict of interest, apparently. He claimed he hadn't been made aware of the full financial scope and couldn't ethically proceed. She tried to spin it, posted something online about toxic masculinity and how some men try to ruin women when they can't control them. But by then, nobody was buying it. Not when people were seeing receipts. Not when her own friends were privately messaging me asking how they missed the signs. Not when her own mother, yes, her mother, sent me a handwritten letter apologizing for the woman my daughter became. I held that letter for a long time. I didn't know how to feel. Vindicated? No, not really. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I wasn't even doing it to hurt her. I was doing it because people like her get away with it too often, erasing those they betray while collecting sympathy on the way out the door. She wanted to rewrite the story, cast herself as the survivor of a boring man. But I wasn't boring. I was watching. And now I was documenting. But I still wasn't done. Because one piece of this puzzle didn't fit Jacob. Why had he left her? Where had he gone? Why was his name connected to 2 storage units, one in her name and one in a city 2 states away? That's where I was headed next. Not to chase him. Not to confront him. But to retrieve something he had left behind. Something that would make her final chapter unforgettable. The storage unit was colder than I expected. Unit 24B. Rented under Jacob's name with a contact number that had long since gone out of service. It took one signature and a court-stamped letter to access it, but once the lock clicked open, I stepped into a space that held the remnants of someone else's delusion. Stacks of old gym bags. Empty cases of alcohol. Torn receipts. 2 faded motorcycle helmets. And in the corner, a black plastic tub with a faded label, C. Karis. Inside were things I hadn't seen in years. Notebooks. A hoodie I thought I'd lost. Copies of emails between them, printed, marked, circled. A scrapbook, believe it or not, made from photos they took together. Grainy motel selfies. Movie stubs. Plans for a life that never happened. On the last page was a note scrawled in a rush like it was written while packing in a panic. She'll never forgive me if she finds out I bailed. That was the last thing Jacob ever left behind. He didn't just vanish. He ran. From her. From the plan. From the weight of it all. Because in the end, Jacob may have been reckless, but he wasn't stupid. He knew what kind of person she was. And when it came time to actually build the new life she promised, he realized something. There was no life there. Just a woman addicted to chaos. And I was finally done trying to clean it up. I left the unit as I found it. I didn't take anything but one item, my old hoodie. Not because I needed it, but because it was mine. Just like my peace. Just like my future. That night, I drove home, not the house I used to share with her, but the new one. The small lakeside place I'd leased under my name, surrounded by trees and silence and no memories attached to every wall. Naomi had handled everything. The audit, the separation, the asset reallocation. We closed the door without ever slamming it. And Karis? She didn't fight in the end. She tried to reclaim her image online. She hinted at betrayal, blamed emotional neglect, posted about healing and empowerment. But her audience had shrunk. People had seen too much. She moved out of state quietly. No party. No goodbye. I never heard from her again. And for the first time in years, I didn't want to. Months later, I was walking through the farmer's market, something I hadn't done since the early days of our marriage, and I ran into someone unexpected. Lena. The woman who helped me dig up the digital truth. I hadn't seen her since the beginning. We got coffee. Talked like real people again. No plotting. No suspicion. Just quiet, clean honesty. It turned into something simple. Then something comforting. Then something real. I don't believe in revenge. I don't believe in burning everything down just because you were standing in it when the fire started. But I do believe in choosing your own ending. And I chose this. Not bitterness. Not punishment. Freedom. So no, I didn't scream. I didn't expose her to the world. I didn't make it my mission to destroy her. I just made sure she could never erase me again. And then I walked away. Not with vengeance, but with the one thing she never expected me to have the last word.